Who among you here owns a phone? Raise your hand. Who has a phone? A phone. Well, a better question would be who doesn't own a phone, right? Come on, guys, it's 2017. Now, who uses laptops or computers to surf the internet? Good. Now, who loves to watch drama or sports on TV, especially the whatever trending Korean series you have? Now, what do these things have in common? Something that millennials do could be they're products of technology. Good. But if we narrow it down, all of these things use electricity. Now, electricity is everywhere. We cannot deny the fact that with the skyrocketing of today's technology and the rapid growth of our society, electricity is something that is so commonplace that we take it for granted. Now, I'm going to let you appreciate how electricity gets into your homes as much as you love posting an update on Instagram or Twitter. Now, behind those poles and wires that you see on the streets are electrical engineers working hard, doing research that concerns electricity around us. To begin with, we have to have an understanding of what is a power grid. Now, a power grid is a large interconnecting network of cables and wires that is concerned with the production and distribution of electricity in your homes. Now, there are two things that you should remember when it comes to power grids. First off, it is always on. And second of all, power grids are constantly changing outputs in order to meet customer demands. Okay. Now, there are two basic components when it comes to power grids. First, we have those who make the power. Okay? Those are the power plants. And we have those who need the power. Those are the consumers. Now, normally, these power plants and the consumers are very far away from each other. No, you don't want a large power plant in your backyard, right? That's like pollution right next door. So there are large transmitting lines that connect these two components, okay? Now, in order to efficiently transmit electricity, these large lines should have high voltages, okay? But the problem is, an average household relatively uses only low voltage of electricity. So let's say that's like around 110 volts. So large power grids transmitting high voltages of electricity could spell disaster in your homes, right? And another problem is power plants cannot generate that much electricity. They can only give around an estimated 25,000 volts. So there is a need to make an electricity that could change its voltage from low to high or high to low. And we gotta thank Nikola Tesla for that. For those of you who do not know Nikola Tesla, he's actually my grandpa. Okay, just kidding. Now, Nikola Tesla discovered AC. No, not air conditioning, alternating current. Now, what is an alternating current? So basically, an alternating current is a type of current that can alternate, well, between positive and negative, reversing direction in many times a second in different intervals. Okay? All we need to do this is a transformer. Okay? And not that kind of transformer, this one. Now, what is a transformer? Although it is not as intimidating as Optimus Prime, but it is as powerful as him. Why? A transformer is a coil of wire that can repackage electricity, meaning it can step up its voltage, easy for transmission, or step down its voltage, easy for distribution. Now that we are familiar with the components of a power grid, let's move on with the process, okay? So there are three processes in a power grid. We have first the generation, and then the transmission, and then distribution. So first, the large power plants generate electricity. So let's say that's around 25,000 volts. Then it travels to a step-up transformer, which increases the voltage from 25,000 to, let's say, 500,000 volts. From there, it travels to large interconnecting network of cables and wires until it reaches to another transformer or a step-down transformer, which lowers the voltage from 500,000 to, let's say, 50,000 volts. Now, from the step-down transformer, it is distributed to villages or subdivisions where you might see large poles which have cylindrical tanks. Okay? Now, those cylindrical tanks are not for decor, but they're actually step-down transformers, okay, which can lower the voltage even further, so that it arrives into your home safe, shock-free, everyone is happy. However, we need to realize that power plants are always changing outputs in order to meet customer demands, balance their supply, right? So power plants cannot generate 25,000 volts every day. That's inefficient and not cost effective. That is why there's a need to understand a topic of interest by many electrical companies, which is known as electric load forecasting. Now, what is electric load forecasting? We have here John to help us understand what is electric load forecasting. Actually, John is an electrical engineer from their city, known as, yeah, I worked hard for that joke. So he's an engineer there. Now, what does John do for a living? What he does is he forecasts electricity load for a certain period of time. Okay? So let's say, for example, they need 30,000 volts for a certain period of time. So the power plant generates that much electricity, then it transmits it to their respective area. Okay? So, and then let's say for another period of time, John needs 40,000 volts of electricity. So the same thing goes, the power plant generates that much electricity, then it travels to large interconnecting wires until it reaches their destination. However, John does not use a magic crystal ball, okay, in forecasting. What he uses is what we call as a forecasting model, although it is clothed in sophisticated mathematics. Now, John must be accurate in his forecasts, okay? If he predicts too high than what is needed, then he will have an excess in supply, or which will incur penalties, and his boss will not be happy about that. What are you doing, John? If he predicts too low values, then his customers may experience power outages, and they will not be happy about that, especially when you're watching your favorite shows, like whatever trending Korean series are there, or Game of Thrones, perhaps. However, John has noticed something in his forecasting model, okay? It is not giving away accurate results anymore. That's the predicament he's trying to figure out, or else he'll get fired. Fortunately, we have mathematics on our side to help problems people face just like John's. I'm here to save the day. So, my research proposes a new model called an Arima model. Okay. Now, what does Arima stand for? It stands for autoregressive, integrated, moving average model. So don't be overwhelmed by the jargon. An Arima model is one of the myriad mathematical models that concern time. Okay, that's what you need to think. It concerns time. Now, in a nutshell, an Arima model is used in order to predict future outcomes. Okay, and it has many different applications. Like, for example, you can use an Arima model to predict temperature changes in a certain region over a period of time. Okay, there is always time involved. Or if you are working in a food corporation, you can predict monthly, weekly, or daily sales of a product. And you can even depict the price changes of commodities in the stock markets. So it has many different applications. Now, here's the context of my study. First, I gather the data in order to retrieve the information. Then from there, I use the data to formulate the Arima model. And then from that generated model, I use it to predict electric load. So that's the context. Now, in formulating the Arima model, I have followed 5 easy steps. So here are the 5 easy steps. First, we have identification. So to help you visualize what identification is I portrayed mathematical models into, well, real-life models. So here we have identified potential models that could represent the data. In this case, our data is electric load. After identifying the potential models, we proceed with the next stage known as the estimation stage. Now here, we try to estimate the parameters of each model. Now these parameters are represented by the letters P, D, Q, and their capital counterparts P, D, Q, and S. Okay, now think of these parameters as like the eye size of each model, or the nose length, or the roundness of the cheeks, or how kissable the lips are. Okay, those are your parameters of each model. So that means for each model, they have different or distinct set of parameters. Okay? After which, we go on to the next step, known as the diagnostics checking. Now here, we determine if each model still fit the assumptions of an Arima model. It's like trying to monitor if the models are still beautiful, like that. So in order to do this, we check the residuals of each model. Now what are residuals? Residuals are the difference between the observed values and the forecasted values. So the observed values are your original data, and the forecasted values are the predictions of each model. Okay? Now the assumptions of an Arima model is that the residuals should be normally distributed and random. Now after checking the diagnostics, those 3 models passed, meaning they are good to go to the next step, which is selection. So here we select which among those 3 models is the best that beats the rest. Okay, it's kind of like awarding the crown of glory then. So what we do here is we have a certain criteria to determine which among the models is the best. Okay, that criteria is known as the Akaike information criterion or the Bayesian information criterion. Again. So the model with the least AIC and BIC is the best model. Okay, that's what you need to take note. The least AIC and BIC is the best model. Okay, so Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have the finalists for the search for the next Arima Model 2017. We have Model 1, Model 2, and Model 3. Now, which do you think is the model with the least AIC and BIC? Is it Model 1, 2, or 3? Who says Model 1? Who says Model 2? Why are you not participating? Who says Model 3? In reality, it's Model 2, which has the least AIC and BIC. And if you're thinking about Model 1, then you should probably get your eyes checked. So she is the best model among the rest. And what we do is select her, and we just reject the other two. Goodbye. So from here on, we use this model to proceed to the next and final step, known as forecasting and evaluation. So here, we determine if how strong the forecasts are, or how accurate the forecasting model is. In order to do that, we need to determine the MAPE of the model. MAPE stands for mean absolute percentage error. Now, if the MAPE is less than 10%, then the model gives a very strong forecast. Okay? Now, here are the results of my research. The model currently used by John has MAPE equal to 10%. Now, you gotta admit that's a very strong forecasting model that they are using, right? 10%, very strong forecast. But the model that I generated has MAPE equal to 3%, which is better compared than what John is using. So then I can propose this model to John. By then, he will not predict too high values, which will make his boss happy. Also, he will not predict too low values, making their consumers happier. So a little reminder for everyone regarding mathematical models. What distinguishes a mathematical model from, say, a poem, a song, a portrait, or any other kind of model is that the mathematical model is an image or picture of reality painted with logical symbols instead of with words, sounds, or watercolors. That was by John L. Casti, by the way. Now, mathematical models are not perfect, okay? We are not perfect, but there is still room for improvement, okay? All of them are actually useful. So the next time you charge up your device, think about how diligent John is with his job just to make you happy. Thank you.